here's the motherfucking strawberry acai refresher from Starbucks. It was actually on the house today because the line in the drive-thru was so long, but I'm dumb. I have the lowest fade in the county. My eyebrows look good at least. Hey everyone, back with episode 2 of the Take Home Cast. This time our topic is something not a lot of people are going to be interested in, and I think that's great, and I think that's a really good direction for my content to go in. This episode, we are talking about Saturday Night Live, which is one of my favorite comedic institutions. It's one of my favorite television shows. I think it's great. Love watching it, love talking about it, love looking back at old episodes, love thinking about new episodes. I want to give some opinions on this show because it's a very, I think, divisive kind of show. It's very much kind of you love it or you hate it, and even if you say you hate it but you watch it every week, like, you at least respect it as an institution. You respect it as something that's been going on for almost 45 years. So obviously there is some sense of love or respect there, even if, you know, someone's like, last week's episode was trash, and so was the episode before it, and also, like, all 21 episodes this season that I watched all of. Like, okay, you have some semblance of respect for this show that you watch every single week. I do think it is an important part of American culture and comedy history. And I just want to talk about it because it's something that I have a lot of thoughts on, specifically for the newer seasons. I will be talking a little bit about the current cast and not a whole lot about, you know, the original cast or the cast from the 80s because I wasn't alive yet. But a lot of what I talk about today is going to be essentially bound to the 21st century because that is what I know best. I haven't gone back and watched, you know, full episodes or, you know, what portions of episodes are available to me, and I do need to do that. It's just, you know, a time thing. I'm also trying to watch, you know, a bunch of other shows. I'm trying to get through a lot of movies. I am rewatching Barry Until the Day I Die. Watch Barry on HBO. Thank you. What we're gonna do is I'm kind of gonna alternate between a popular take that I agree with or I agree with in a qualified capacity, and then I'm going to alternate to a hot take that I think people might disagree with, or it's not something that's generally talked about or addressed, or something that people might not have a lot of opinions of yet. And I think it'll be a good kind of balance because a lot of these, unfortunately, they are negative because when the show works well, it's like you have nothing to say about it, especially talking about the show as it is right now, because I think a lot of people say it's not good because there's not those iconic moments, but it's hard to qualify the term iconic when shit's happening right now. When we're 5 years from now, people are going to be looking back and saying, you know, oh my god, that sketch with Cecily was great. That sketch, you know, and the Don Cheadle episode was absolutely iconic part of SNL history. Like, it's hard when things are happening to know their impact and their weight and how good or how bad they are. Maybe just how good they are, because I think sometimes we know how bad shit is. And I think I'm gonna be talking about that a little bit. SNL is just something that is a part of my life now, and I know it's like whatever cringy to be in like the SNL fandom a little bit, but I don't fucking care. I think that's a big part of like how you kind of have to go about your appreciation for this show is like, yeah, people fucking hate this show. Whether it's people attacking it for the politics of it, or, you know, just thinking it's unfunny, or not liking certain cast members, it's like, okay, cool, subjective opinion. I still fucking love the show and I'm gonna watch it every single week. So even if there are episodes that are hard to watch, even if there are episodes that they waste, you know, so much talent on stupid things, I love this show. That's a part of it, you know, seeing what works and what doesn't. That's a part of the comedic process in general. This is just something that I love. Because I do love the show, I love comedy. I love, you know, catching little things in writing that maybe the audience doesn't laugh at, but it's like, oh my fucking god, I see what they did there. Like, that was funny as shit. No one laughed, but like, oh my god. So, with that said, we are going to get started.
Psych!
So, filmed this video before the new cast members were announced, and today one of them has already been fired, so that's pretty interesting. He doesn't deserve me talking about him for an extensive period of time. All I have to say is so fucking stoked for Bowen Yang and Chloe Fineman to be on this show. This is monumental. They're going to be incredible. I can just feel it. So excited for them. A little hesitant about the 17-person cast. Better than 18, though. But yeah, not going to talk about that other chuckle fuck. But, yeah, just, it doesn't really change my takes on the show. So, hopefully you guys enjoy. I am going to get started with a popular take that I agree with. Now, when I say popular take, I am talking about the general consensus I get from fans of the show. There are almost 50,000 people in the SNL subreddit. My ideas on what is and what is not a popular take comes from what people are saying on the subreddit. And that may be a bit of a bubble, but I think that is the largest concentration of people who watch SNL on the internet, apart from people who like live tweet it on Twitter and then Facebook moms, which I will get to. The first one I'm going to discuss is essentially what it boils down to in my mind. Seth Meyers, miles better than Colin and Che. Essentially what this means is that the show needs new head writers and new update anchors. I don't have an enormous problem with Michael Che. I think sometimes he misses the mark, and I think sometimes he's just not that funny. I have a bigger problem with Colin Jost. I don't think they're bringing anything fresh, and I don't think they're bringing any sort of structure or like bar for the content that is ending up on the show. So this is kind of in two parts. Part update needs to be revamped, part new head writers. So I'll start with the head writers thing. I think the show could do miles better if they put someone like Streeter Seidel in a head writing position, if they put Anna Dresden in a head writing position, I don't understand why James Anderson isn't the head writer. I don't know if maybe he was in the past. I'll have to look into that. I think Kent Sublette is a good choice for head writer. I just think they need people who are not Colin Jost to be the head writer. He has been on the show as a writer for over a decade, which is fine, perfectly fine. Obviously good things have come out of that, but I think it is time for a little change, because the amount of episodes we had with absolutely squandered talent. You look at the Awkwafina episode, you look at the Steve Carell episode. Oh my god, the Paul Rudd episode, the season finale. When the season finale is one of the worst, if not the worst episode of the season, you have a fucking fundamental problem with your writing staff. And that's not going for every single writer. There are absolutely impeccable writers on the show, some of which they let go. And it doesn't sound like there's going to be a change of writing staff and who's at the top, and I don't know what other writers they added. But when you have people like Anna Dresden, Allison Gates, Bowen Yang, Julio Torres, like, are you kidding me? And then you have Jost and Che as the head writers and update anchors. It doesn't make sense to me, and I know there is internal stuff that I can't comprehend because I don't have the information on it, but I don't think it is working for the show anymore. Shit falls flat too often. And I think there are absolutely incredible sketches. Like, sketches that blow sketches from 10 years ago out of the fucking water. But there are probably an almost equal amount of sketches that are like, what are they doing? Who approved this? And then you see what got cut for time and you're like, I think it's time for new head writers. I don't know who it'd be. Don't know what kind of, chain of command they'd have to go through, but it needs to happen. I don't see it happening until Colin Jost willingly leaves the show, though, because I feel like he and Lauren, have it good. Just like Seth Meyers had left on his own, and that's what caused the change in things. So if it's working for them, it's working for them. But I think it needs to change. As far as update anchors go, I don't like Colin Jost as an update anchor, and I don't think Michael Che is doing it for me anymore. The only update anchors I have experience watching in full besides these two, it's Seth Meyers, Amy Poehler, and Tina Fey, and Cecily. I don't like it when Colin Jost laughs, like breaks at jokes that he wrote. I don't think that's cute. I do think it is funny when there are silly or goofy things that happen with the Weekend Update characters that cause maybe Colin or Che to break a little bit when things go off script a little. I remember Michael had at least... I just called him Michael. That's disgusting. I hate that. I do remember there were one or two instances, I think this past season, maybe in season 43 as well, where Che had, you know, he went off script a little bit and it was like super hilarious there. But when Colin is just like, he says his joke and it like gets a groan from the audience, he's like, when he breaks at his own joke, I don't understand. Like, Seth Meyers would never. I just think it's time for new update hosts. I do think Pete Davidson could have been a good option, maybe. Like, the update host should be its own character, essentially. Like, you know, Seth Meyers, when he'd have the update characters on, he would kind of develop his own character in a way, you know. But when, you know, Colin and Che do it, I feel like it's just like bland, dried down versions of themselves. I think it'd be good to have other people do update. That's just my opinion. So here's a hot take that I think kind of falls in the footsteps of what I just said about the writing. SNL needs to stop being so concerned with making content that Facebook moms are gonna share. I don't like comedy when it's something my mom would share on Facebook. Watching the Hader, Wig, Armisen, Myers era, they did some shit that was like risque. They did some shit that was like, oh my god, I don't want my mom to see this. But now it's like, I think just because they are going so much more in depth with their political comedy and their political bits, and left of center white moms on Facebook eat that shit up because they're like, oh my god, I'm so woke. I love this comedy that they're doing about the president. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing for SNL's bits to be shared online. Obviously, that's how we all know of like things that happened in the 80s when I wasn't born yet. Like, I know of Chris Farley and Adam Sandler's bits on SNL because of videos that were shared on the internet. But when it becomes like the focus of the show sometimes, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think the show goes far enough in terms of maybe like black comedy or dark comedy. Sometimes it scratches the surface with satire. I need SNL to hit harder sometimes. But like, you know, things like the Kavanaugh cold open. It was great, I will admit. But it's I think the most watched clip from this last season. And it's just so shocking to see, you know, a political sketch from SNL has 18 million views. And then you go and watch, you know, your favorite sketch from that episode and it has like 750,000. Like, what are we doing as people? And that might just be a comment on society. I probably just hate people who aren't interested in comedy because there are absolutely brilliant sketches with brilliant writing and brilliant performances from the cast that are not getting nearly as much attention because I do believe the show is funneling too much time into those specifically political impressions. I believe Kate McKinnon's talent has been squandered on them dressing her up as white men from Congress. I think this cast is so much more than, you know, putting on a funny wig and being Lindsey Graham. When your cold open is like over 10 minutes of political stuff, that's when I know you are trying to get clicks on Facebook and YouTube. And yeah, it works. Congratulations. The show is not too political, but I do believe the show puts too much time and production into the political aspects. There's some funny shit that doesn't get on the show. Like, why can't we take a minute out of the cold open, or, you know, a minute out of the cold open and a minute out of the sketch here, or drop a bit from Weekend Update that's like not needed, and then add a sketch in that, you know, brings something fresh. Let Kyle Mooney's fucking content get into the show for once. I think too much time is poured into the political stuff, while I also think the show is not too political. It just spends minute or two too long on that shit. You're putting Kate McKinnon in wigs and prosthetics and makeup every single week. Like, I want to see her utilized elsewhere because I'm starting to feel like that's all she's there for. So back to a popular take. SNL is not the right venue for Kyle Mooney's humor. I will qualify that by saying he absolutely is not a detriment to the show. Just because he would do better with his own series, or, you know, writing for a different series or producing things in an online format, I don't think that means his comedy is not right for the show. I feel like the show is not right for his comedy, and that is something that is repeated a lot online, you know, like, can't wait until Kyle gets his own show, or like, can't wait till Kyle leaves so he can, you know, realize his potential a little bit more. He had that movie Brigsby Bear, which was absolutely amazing, and I was blown away, and I have to rewatch it because that movie made me feel things that I didn't even have a name for, and I just really need that from him more. Like, I want more of that from him. I want to see him doing a show or doing a movie. I want to see him doing more than just, you know, being a background character in 2 sketches and getting his content for the week cut. He is absolutely not a detriment to the show, though, because I do believe that when he does have something that he and Beck, or just he, writes and it gets onto air, I think it usually is one of the best moments of the show. And obviously I'm biased because I adore this man. I adore Good Neighbor stuff. I love Kyle and Beck and Nick. Even though that era is over, it's still, like, that's Kyle's brand. He is weird. He is stuck in a different time. Like, his content is stuck in a different time, and it's amazing. I don't think the show is built to celebrate that kind of humor that he has, but it is humor that makes me laugh very, very hard. And it is something I love. And it is very disappointing when I see his content ending up on YouTube cut for time, when it's like, he literally made a sketch about like the 17th cast member of SNL, like another featured player on the show besides Heidi, Chris, and Ego, and it's the Adam Zeekman bit, and it's like, oh, here's this cast member that no one's seen on the show because, like, he's always cut out of his sketches, and that fucking bit, that short, the pre-tape, got cut for time. That is the most ironic thing I can fucking think of, but it goes to show, like, he is producing and writing this great content. He is an amazing character actor with the characters that he creates, but that is not what's being celebrated on the show. I will also make a point to say, if you go back and watch, like, every single sketch Kyle Mooney has ever been a part of, the live sketches, I've seen him break or flub maybe one time, and that's like, trust me, I'm hyper fixating on him. Trust me, I'm, like, looking out for Kyle Mooney in sketches. I'm like, where is he? Where is he in the show this week? Where the fuck is he? And so when he is in the sketch, I'm like, yes, there he is. Let me see what he's doing. And I don't see him break. I don't see him flub. It's happened maybe once or twice. Like, he doesn't have a lot of impressions. He has a lot of original ideas and original content that he is great at executing. But when it comes to everything else, they don't utilize him as often, which I understand. And it will be amazing to see what Kyle Mooney does after the show, but for the time being, I am very happy to see him on my screen. I think he's great, and I can't wait to see what he does this season. So another hot take for you. This one's gonna sound really mean, but there was an article that came out calling Alex Moffat the next best utility player on SNL, and it really puzzled me because I don't see Alex as this is where it's going to sound really mean. I don't see Alex as adding something to the show that is really that unique. I'm not going to say that Alex Moffat is a bad cast member. I don't think he is. I think he is strong. I think he is great in the bits he does. He doesn't flub that often, I don't think. I don't recall him messing a sketch up ever. But I don't think he is, like, the utility man. Like, I'm thinking Taran Killam, I'm thinking Beck Bennett. I do not see Alex Moffat that way. I think he's still trying to find his place, which is why I was surprised they upgraded him to repertory. So I think Alex has, you know, qualities of someone who could be a utility player, but I don't exactly see where he's fitting into the cast right now. And not a lot of people are talking about that, which is why I am kind of confused, like, that this article was written in the first place. I just pulled it up. It's called SNL Report Card. Alex Moffat is the show's next big utility player. I understand where they're coming from. He is a very well-rounded person who can do voices. He can play the straight man, but I'm not exactly inspired by him. I'm not exactly overly impressed by his work. I thought maybe that article would be written about Mikey Day, who is absolutely the breakout star of the show right now in terms of the men on it. But I don't think Alex is really adding a whole lot to the show. He has his Eric Trump character, which is great. I will agree that that is very funny. I'm very picky with my Weekend Update characters. I don't think Guy Who Just Bought a Boat is peak comedy. I do think it is impressive how well he can say his lines, because some of those lines are very hard to say and to formulate, to write even. So like talking about Alex and me not really knowing his place on the show, it made me think about like, where would I want the cast right now? This is kind of going to feed into my next popular take. Where I would want the cast right now, I'm just going to read the list. I would want the cast for season 45 ideally to be Cecily Strong, Adie Bryant, Heidi Gardner, Melissa Villasenor, Ego Wodum, Kyle Mooney, Beck Bennett, Mikey Day, Keenan Thompson, Chris Redd, and maybe Kate McKinnon. And then if they decide to add another person on, that would be aces. So I left off the Weekend Update anchors because they're not really on the show except for Weekend Update, and I'd be interested to see if maybe they replace them this season, which they won't, because they're not going to replace them until after the next election, which scares me. I'm going to kind of combine with my popular take. I cut 4 people out of the cast. Who did I cut? Well, Leslie left. I cut out Pete, I cut out Alex, and I cut out Kate McKinnon. I love Kate. I think she is a great comedian with big things ahead of her. I think it is time for her to leave the show. So my popular opinion is that the cast is too bloated, but my qualification is that it is not because of the sheer number of people in it. I don't know if this is a problem with the writers, circling back to that first point, but my main problem is that people are getting shoved into corners and pigeonholed and doing things that are within what everyone knows they can do, but no one is being pushed or challenged on the show, really. And it's not to say that SNL is like, you need to work hard and push yourself and you have to do this voice or you have to play this character this time, otherwise like you suck as a comedian. But like, when you are only using Melissa Villasenor to do impressions, when you are only using Kyle Mooney to play weird wacko 80s characters, when you're only using Alex Moffat as the straight man, when things like that, so people are just kind of getting shoved into things that we know they're already good at, and no one's really being used across the board, which I think is something that was way more prevalent when you had 8 to 10 people on the show. It is very frustrating to see people like Melissa Villasenor have their talent be squandered because, we're just gonna have her on Update and she's gonna be doing this voice or whatever, or she's gonna play this quirky awkward girl in this sketch. Like, let her do more, and she has done more and it's been good. So I don't understand why there's this hesitation to let people do other things. I think everyone is so talented on this cast. I think Heidi Gardner is going to be one of my favorite cast members of all time. I think Chris Redd is doing amazing things, but no one's talking about how underutilized Chris Redd is. He is good for so much more than just doing the pre-tapes and, a Kanye impression here and there. He is impeccable. His facial expressions, his physical comedy, the way he delivers things. Please use him more. Please use Melissa more. Please use Ego more. Please use Kyle more in things that aren't just weird off-the-wall sketches. Like, if you look back on when Bill Hader was on the show, obviously I'd go ahead and say he is the best impressionist SNL has ever had, but he was doing other things because there weren't 16 people on the show. So he had to play the straight man. He had to, be a background character in a pre-tape or SNL digital short. So I just wish they'd kind of, explore that a little bit more. Some weeks we see so much of some people and it's like, well, I think maybe they could have used Alex instead of Beck there, or like, I think maybe they could have used Melissa instead of Cecily as the straight woman in that sketch. For whatever reason, a lot of people's talent isn't being fully recognized, I think, at least, by the general public. People hyperfixate on Kate McKinnon and Keenan Thompson, which is absolutely deserved, but it's like, hey, Cecily's fucking killing it. Adie Bryant is fucking killing it. Like, Mikey Day, at the top of his game. Like, let's put people in positions where people can realize that. And it's, it's not about society's approval, but it is about, I know this person can do more, or I feel like, they're not being allowed to really do things that maybe the cast 10 years ago would have done. You have 16 people on the show, and when we don't see Melissa, Ego, and Mikey for an entire episode, where the fuck did they go? Mikey Day is probably the strongest guy on the cast right now. If I'm a big Beck Bennett fan, but he is leaving after this season, most likely. Like, Mikey Day is one of the strongest people on the cast right now, right? Like, everyone's strong, but like, Mikey Day kills it in every fucking sketch. Mikey Day has saved more sketches than I can count, and you don't use him for an entire episode. But then the next episode, he's in almost every single sketch, and we don't see 80. Like, I understand there's probably things behind the scenes going on. Again, people picking certain people for their sketches, but it is a little concerning and a little frustrating. I just have to say it. This is, in the grand scheme of things, probably my most unpopular opinion. Cecily Strong is a better cast member than Kristen Wiig. Now, this is completely subjective, and I don't want anyone to think I'm saying that Kristen Wiig sucks or I don't like Kristen Wiig, because I love that woman. I love what she did on the show and for the show and who she is, and she is fucking hilarious. I think the fundamental difference, though, is that we're in an age of SNL where there's not really recurring characters or recurring sketches, apart from Weekend Update characters. So it is a little hard, I will admit, to compare the two when Cecily is in an age where she is essentially playing a different character in every single sketch every single week, whereas Kristen Wiig had a little bit more character work. They did the secret word sketches, they did Target Lady, they did Penelope and Shanna. She had Sue, who would ruin all the surprises. Like, so much character work. Like, when you think Kristen Wiig, you're like, oh yeah, she played this character and this character and this character, and don't make me sing. Kristen was in so much iconic shit, and she is what made that shit iconic. I'm not at all trying to discount that. I just think for my tastes and what I am impressed by is Cecily's ability to do fucking everything. I just think for what I enjoy in a sketch, Cecily just brings it to the table a little bit more, because for where the show is at right now, and like, this is my era of SNL. I grew up on Bill Hader, but like, this is my era. Cecily just does it more for me. She doesn't get those recurring characters, which sucks. I wish the show had more of that. One of my favorite recurring sketches of all time is Girlfriend Talk Show with Cecily and 80. I think that shit's so funny, and I'm sad they stopped doing it. But I think she's just good in everything she does. I think she, along with Kristen Wiig, has saved more sketches than I can count. I just think Cecily is a better all-around player, and she is one of the only people on the cast that I do think the writers use for everything. She holds such a special place in my heart, and that's just my opinion. I still think Kristen Wiig, like, I would kiss the ground she walks on, but just right now I'm so feeling Cecily and just her ability to be such an all-around player. Whereas, when Kristen was on the show, she wasn't really ever the straight woman. She wasn't really ever, the normal person in the sketch, or bringing like the dry humor or the satire in a sketch. It was always, this absurd character with this, mannerism. And I think that's fine. I think that's what she was good at, and she killed it in those sketches. I just think Cecily is better for all-around things. And I just love that woman, and that's where I'm at right now. That's how I feel about her. Speaking more about cast members, another popular take, Leslie Jones leaving the show is going to help the show. I don't hate Leslie Jones by any means, but it is detrimental to the show. You can't complete a sketch without breaking over something you have rehearsed. This kind of feeds into another opinion of mine as well, which I'm not sure if it's unpopular or popular, or what's going on, if it's a hot take, if it's a lukewarm take, if it's a cold take, if it's molten hot lava take. I think breaking is something that kind of has to be done with its own expertise. Again, this may just be my bias, but when Hader, Wiig, and Armisen would break, I hate saying Fred Armisen, but when like Bill Hader would break on the show, I think it, like, I always gave that a pass. Like, I give it a pass to this day, because as we all know, with Steph on a Weekend Update, John Mulaney was fucking with him behind the scenes and trying to get him to break. The whole thing with Bill Hader breaking, most of the time, more often than not, it's because his fellow cast members were trying to get the fucker to break. And he did. And I love it. And he made it so charming, and like it added to the sketches, I think. The show is funny. If it's funny enough to make the actors laugh because they're trying to make each other laugh because they're having a good time and the chemistry on the cast is so good, fuck yes. But when it is Leslie Jones or Pete Davidson breaking in a sketch that they have rehearsed and nothing particularly funny is going on, like nothing over the top, like, oh my god, this accident happened, funny, I don't get it. It doesn't work. It ruins the sketch a lot of the time. I think her features on Update were good, but she broke in those too, or she, flubbed the line. And, once, twice, 3 times, excusable. Like, if you were delivering impeccable content week after week, but, like, sometimes you mess up a line, it's fine. But when it's every week, messing something like that up can really ruin the vibe of a sketch, and she does that too often. And I think it is a good thing that she is not going to be on the show anymore. Sometimes when Pete Davidson breaks, it is because of like a malfunction in the sketch, or, something happens, or, something comical that wasn't planned happens. But he is also a culprit of breaking when there's no need to break. Speaking like on Update, reading his own material, like, why are you snorting at it? Why are you laughing at it? It's not the same charm. It's just kind of people breaking just to break, and just because they can't hold it together, or because they think it's like funny or something. It's not the same way people would break 10 years ago. And it doesn't particularly add anything, in my opinion. So that's why when I read that list of who I would ideally want to be on this season, I left Pete Davidson off. I really wish he would just leave and move on. He's mega popular for that shit with Ariana. He got like a following online from that. I don't think a lot of people knew who he was before he dated Ariana Grande, which is like wild to me. But he'd be just fine without the show, and the show would be so much better without him. And that's mean to say, because Pete Davidson has had his moments in sketches. He had that, I can't exactly remember who was hosting, but he had that sketch where he was playing Rudolph and like all the other reindeer were bullying him, and he fucking snapped, and it was amazing. Hi, kitty. Yeah, come up here. Oh. He had, he has sketches like that where he gets to fully realize like this character, and it's very kind of like Sandler almost. I'd say, he taps into something like harshly aggressive and harshly funny, and I think it works. And I wish they'd give him more stuff like that, but they stick him into a role of like, awkward young guy, and he just breaks in the sketch, and that's the joke. I just think he's not a necessary utility on the show, and I think they could bring in someone who could, play that younger role, be like someone in their 20s who could play those roles, or, whatnot. But I think he's way too tight with Lorne Michaels, and I don't think he's definitely not gonna be let go. It's gonna have to be of his own volition, and that, I don't think it's gonna happen soon. It's probably going to be when his contract's up, which sucks, because I really, really, really want to see Bowen Yang on the cast, but I don't think it's going to happen. Psych! So, another opinion. This is probably in the realm of popular, but everyone's opinion on this subject is going to be different. So, Bill Hader is the best SNL cast member of the 21st century. There is really, 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 really no topping Bill Hader and what he did on and for the show. It's a gift that he has to be able to do impressions the way he does, but there is more to him than that. Just the way he put everything into his sketches, like when he played Vinny Vedecci, he went all the way. He wasn't just putzing around doing a little, Italian accent. He was in it. Everything from his era is amazing to me because everyone was just in it, every single sketch, whereas now I feel like it's a little clunky at times, and not everyone is performing their characters 100%, but when Bill Hader would do anything, it's like he was doing that. And something that impresses me further, like, he's already my favorite cast member of the 21st century, but something that puts him even, like, into the category of possibly all time. Like, for me, he's my favorite cast member of all time. I can't say that he's the best of all time because I need to evaluate everyone who was on the show essentially before 2000. But he's into the realm of all time for me because he was on a live performance show for 8 years, with intense anxiety. As someone who struggles with anxiety, if you told me, like, hey, you're gonna have to go do this live performance in front of hundreds of people in the crowd and then millions watching at home, like, I'm gonna need a little time to process that. I'm probably gonna shit my pants as I'm walking out onto the stage. So, like, for him to have done that for 8 years, while, you know, revealing afterward, like, it was basically torture for him, but he still gave the funniest, most compelling performances out of, I'd say, anyone on the show at the time. I think that makes him great. I think that makes him an all-time great, and I think a lot of people have the same opinion. Like, yeah, he is absolutely one of the best cast members of all time, or, you know, of the past decade, 2 decades. I don't think this is a different cat. Yeah, I'm filming on my cat tree because that made sense to me. The lighting's pretty good back here. He is, on top of being one of my all-time favorite people, favorite actors, favorite directors, favorite writers, favorite everything, I think he is great. I think he is SNL's greatest. And that's not easy for me to say when rewatching the past decade and a half of seasons made me realize how much I loved Kristen Wiig and Will Forte. Like, did he do something? Why does no one talk about Will Forte? Like, did y'all watch him on the show? Did y'all see what? Okay, this is completely tangential, but I see Garth and Kat, but I raised them John Bovey, like Jason Sudeikis and Will Forte on Weekend Update singing like the inverse of popular rock songs was the funniest shit to me. Like, I don't know. I could go on a whole tangent about Will Forte, but I won't. Bill Hader is just somebody that I think is timeless. I think he will always be funny, you know, looking back at his sketches and also what he is doing now and what he will do in the future. Bill Hader broke in sketches, absolutely. I don't think breaking in sketches necessarily makes someone the devil, but there is a difference between when it's natural and when it's just like you not being professional. I think it added to his charm. I think there was a lot about his characters and the sketches he was in that were charming in a very funny kind of way. But yeah, I cannot say enough good things about Bill Hader. And overall, I think he is SNL's greatest. This is the worst angle you could view my face from. This is like, oh, she's kind of a woodland elf. But like, this is, oh my god, she's a can of Chef Boyardee mini beef raviolis. But then like here, it's like, I've kind of got angles. Like, you can see my fade. I got a zit right there. You can see my fade a little better on this side. And like my ears, and you can like, I don't have a jaw, I have another zit right there. And I covered one up a little bit with concealer right there. But like this side, you can kind of like tell I'm a person. But this side, again, it's just a can of Chef Boyardee mini beef raviolis. My last take for this episode, and it's a hot one, is that SNL is funny. Saturday Night Live makes me laugh every week it's on. And whether it's a dumb fucking joke on Update, and yes, I know I trashed Colin and Che at the beginning of this episode, but whether it's, you know, a dumb fucking joke on Update that Che wrote, or if it's, you know, something going wrong in a horrible, terrible sketch, SNL is funny. It is. I'm sorry if people don't want to hear that, if people think it's not funny at all. I definitely agree that there are some episodes or some sketches that are essentially unwatchable. There are, you know, I will not be watching the Steve Carell or Paul Rudd episodes from this past season again, but when this show hits its stride, it is fucking amazing. Go watch the Don Cheadle episode, like seriously. Go watch the Claire Foy episode. Jason Momoa is pretty good. Liev Schreiber, his episode was surprisingly great. Oh my god, when Seth Meyers hosted the show, I started crying when they put him on Update. Oh god, both of them. It's both of them. Both of them are on a treadmill. They're gonna start fucking fighting. It's gonna be loud. But like, when this show is good, it's really fucking good. When it's bad, you can feel it in your bones. Trust me, no one is trying to, vouch for the shitty sketches that fall flat, that are like, ooh, everyone fucking flubbed their lines in this one, or that sketch didn't even have an ending. Like, no one is trying to say that shit's good content, okay? But I need you to understand that this show is funny. This show is important to so many people. This show is important to so many comedians and aspiring comedians, actors, writers, producers, everything. Apart from, stand-up comedy specials and then, sitcoms or comedy shows on, NBC or Fox or whatever, like, there's not a whole lot of other stuff we have for sketch comedy or like alternative comedy. It's, you can indulge in traditional movies or traditional TV shows, but when things like Saturday Night Live are still as good as they are, it's not perfect, it's not incredible, but it is still fucking good. And I'm so glad we do have things, kind of on the rise in terms of, other kinds of shows. Not to, kiss Bill Hader's ass even more, but Documentary Now. Like Documentary Now is not something that's really been done before, and it's new and it's refreshing. And when there's not a lot of shows in this format, I think it's important to focus on, like, okay, what's working and what's not? How can we keep this going? Because it is important to keep it going. So yes, SNL is funny. It has always been funny. And I hate to disappoint you guys, but there are just as many sketches that bomb in the old episodes as there are in the new ones. As I said, I'm currently watching the Haderwig, Armisen, Sudeikis era. And there are sketches I have to skip through because they're like, ooh. The Russell Brand episode of season 36 is entirely unwatchable for me. It was so bad. But then you have those fucking killer episodes. John Hamm in season 35, I think he hosted one of the last episodes of season 35, maybe a middle one. But John Hamm in season 35, one of the all-time best episodes of SNL. I don't know where that falls in the range of takes and opinions, but like, I just watched that a few days ago and I was like, oh my fucking god, every single sketch was good. The monologue was amazing. Every single sketch was impeccable. And when the show gets like that, when you have the episodes like Don Cheadle and Seth Meyers and, whatever other episodes you personally subjectively like, oh my god, it's so fun to watch, so funny to laugh at, so fun to talk about with others who are like, oh my god, did you catch that joke in there? Did you see the way, he looked at her like this, and, the camera pan this way, or like, oh my god, like, there was a little, camera error in it. When you get, this show is so fun to get into and so fun to watch and see it develop. The majority of people, I'd say, only watch, sketches on YouTube that their friends recommended or like they just found in their recommended videos, and it's like, that's their exposure to the show. But when you are a fan of comedy and you are a big fan of sketch comedy, the show is so fundamentally important. And yeah, I do have problems with it. I think everyone has problems with it. There's no one out there who's trying to vouch for it and be like, no, SNL's flawless. Like, I promise you, no one is thinking that. Lorne Michaels is not even thinking that. I don't know why I'm so congested. It's probably because I'm a can of Chef Boyardee mini beef raviolis. It's completely relative or subjective to say, when it is or is not in its prime. Like, oh no, SNL hasn't been funny for X amount of years. Like, we're probably going to be still saying that in 5 years. We're going to be like, oh, SNL hasn't been funny since Beck Bennett was on it. Like, it's a never-ending cycle. I look back at some sketches with Sandler in them, and I'm like, those are fucking stupid. There's shit from 20 years ago that sucked. There's shit from 35 years ago that sucked. There's shit from a year ago that sucked. And it's not a matter of ignoring that. It's just a matter of like, this show's still making me laugh. Even it's like, oh, I hate Weekend Update this week, but like the sketches made me laugh, and like the 10 to 1 made me laugh so hard I cried, and the musical guest was great. Like I can't imagine this institution not existing or not being as respected as it is by people who love it. In conclusion, SNL is funny and good despite its shortcomings, and there are shortcomings. I do think season 43 was amazing in comparison to season 44, which had more problems than I would like to see in a season. And there was more, wasted time, wasted talent than I'd like to see, but I do think it's still an enjoyable, fun show to watch every week, It doesn't have to be your cup of tea. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to think it's funny. You can hate it. I'll give you some sketches to watch that I think are maybe funny or different. They're probably all going to be Kyle Mooney pre-tapes, but I think this show is, it's so important to me, and I'm glad I got to talk about it. Thank you all for indulging me in this. Let me know what you guys think. If you, think I'm way off base on some things, or if I got something wrong. If you have, a different vision for where you see like the cast or the writing or the sketches going, please let me know. I don't have hardly any friends who like watching Saturday Night Live, or at least clips of Saturday Night Live, and I'd really like to talk to some more people about it. Conversations with more than just strangers on Reddit. I'd like to, I don't know, just kind of see what other opinions are out there and see what you guys think. Like, do you think Alex Moffat is the best new player? Are you gonna miss Leslie Jones? Like, are you fine with how Weekend Update is going right now? I'd love to hear it. Always, always, always give me your takes. I am here. You can comment down below. I'm also on Twitter at WowIt'sKaylin. So I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for tuning in and making it this far. That is amazing to me. Thank you for listening to me ramble. And talk about Bill Hader for what felt like 2 hours, but this has been episode 2 of the Take Home Cast. I will catch you guys next time.